Hi, this is Nam from Kaya Wellness. If you're someone who is going through loss or grief right now, going through the pain of that emotion of losing a loved one or a dear family member, this video is for you. Now, when you're going through loss or grief, it feels like a lonely space to be in. It feels like the most painful experience to be experiencing in your lifetime. But first of all, I want you to remember that you're not alone. Everybody goes through loss and grief, and they have to go through that in their lifetime. So you're not alone in that aspect. So we need to acknowledge that. Secondly, the grief or loss you're going through is not for the person who is passed on. It is the loss that you are experiencing. You're experiencing the loss of your parent or a grandparent or any loved person in your life. The person who is passed on is not feeling the loss because there's no body. If there is no body, there is no pain, either emotionally or physically. It is for the people who are left behind who's feeling that space empty, that emptiness of that's been created by that person who's departed. And we are grieving that. We are grieving the loss of that person's presence in our life. So what you need to do is to acknowledge that the person who's passed on is fine. The soul has departed the body to move on to its next journey, whatever it may be. The person is not going through pain, they are not going through any suffering. The suffering is all ours, and so we need to understand how are we going to deal with our suffering. Now, time will take care of overcoming this pain totally, completely. You'll still remember your loved one, but the pain and suffering will keep diminishing as time passes, and to a point at one time you will look back and remember the person fondly but not with the pain. So time will take care of that. Meanwhile, when you're in the middle of it, what you need to do is what I want to share in this video. So when you're going through this painful situation, what you need to do is to be present fully for the pain. Instead of numbing it or distracting yourself, you learn to be present fully for the pain. Cry if you have to, share it with a friend, speak to someone else that you would like to share your sadness with, if there is, or otherwise just journal, cry, dance, whatever you need to do to feel the emotion. Also be present to the happiness and joys in your life at the same time. Remember to do this, because being emotionally current is not only about feeling the pain and sadness of the loss. It is also being present and taking stock of the joys that are also present in your life at that time, right? So you might have your children to cherish with, you might have many things going well for you in your life. Be present even for those joys. You get to be this person who is going through this sadness, also the person who is also experiencing the joy that's happening in other parts of your life. So you get to be experiencing both at the same time. You're sometimes sad, sometimes joyful, because both are present in your life. Don't go into a hole of sadness and become fully immersed in that, because you could either do that or you could numb yourself and distract yourself thinking this is too painful, I don't want to deal with this, and make yourself busy or do anything to distract yourself. Because if you do that, what happens is emotion gets lost in the body somewhere, it gets stored in the body somewhere. Then it becomes really hard later to let it move through the body, because what gets lost in the body keeps getting triggered and comes up during times when you don't even realize why you're feeling sad or why you're feeling triggered for a certain reason. That's because you've not given the space and time for the emotion to move through your body. So being present is really important. From my own life, I lost my mom when I was 10 years old, and I had two other siblings as well, and my mother died in a road accident. And we were also involved in the road accident, and my father was also fighting for his life from the road accident. So it was a very messy situation, as you can imagine. And I was in the hospital myself, being the firstborn. I was 10 years old, and death was unknown to my brother and sister at that time, so they didn't even understand what loss meant. And they did not question where my mom is. They just thought both my parents are in the hospital. But I had this nudging doubt within me, because I had lost my grandfather before that when I was about 7 years old. But I was afraid to ask, and nobody told me she passed away because they were scared that I might go into shock. So after about 6 months is when I knew that my mother had passed away. So this is a very unique situation. Not many people might will go through this. But so how I dealt with that, by then in 6 months, I've not been with that person, right? So it's a very it was a very strange feeling, where I did not go through the grieving process. There was no crying. There was no grieving process happening. I felt sad, of course, and then I just moved on to the other things. So what happened was, I did not go through the grieving process, and the emotion got stuck somewhere in my body, which would keep coming up throughout my life, like till even my late 20s and even my 30s. I would get triggered unnecessarily. I would get angry with looking at someone who's having a mom doing something for them. I would get triggered for that, and like I wouldn't understand why I'm this whole this topic about having a mom, or the topic mother itself, was a very no-go zone for me, because I had numbed myself from that. Until I had to go through inner work to understand why I'm feeling like that, and let that emotion move through me. I went through a lot of inner work to get that trauma out of my body. So being present, if the grieving process was done at that time, this wouldn't happen. But we all learn. I've learned from my own experience to understand this more. The different things that could go wrong if we don't give the emotion the space and time it requires. So be sure to give that space and time, and trust that time is going to make it easier on you. If you're if be also present, to be available for the joys, because if you're not doing that, you could go into a state of, like, too much sadness, and make that as an excuse to not be doing things, and not to just to let other parts of your life fall apart. It doesn't have to. And by crying, or if not by crying, by being present for the joys in your life, it doesn't mean you're disrespecting the person who's passed on. It just means you're a person who's having a full-fledged messy life. Life is messy. You've got so many things going on at the same time, and we need to be present for everything. If we have to give space for everything to happen in a healthy way. So if you're a friend of someone who is going through loss, what you could do is, sometimes this is a very touchy, uncomfortable space for friends, people to be around. Like that, I don't know what to say. It's a very painful situation. So people often wonder, like, what am I going to say? What am I supposed to do? What you need to do is just be present for the person going through the loss. You don't need to say anything. Just acknowledge. Don't say things like, oh, it's all right, don't cry. Don't say that. Let them cry. Give them the space, and create, if you're a good friend, just give them that space where they feel okay to cry in front of you. That will be a huge favor, without and then once they've cried, you just move on to the next thing in life, like, bring them back to the present moment, where other things are also happening. So that's one way. If you're a friend who is going through, someone who's going through loss, you could help as well. So I wanted to share this with you. I hope this video helps at least a little bit. Bye.